What's up, y'all? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Atlanta. This is season 16, episode 2. And let me just say this, Greg. Porsha versus Drew, I need y'all to wrap this up by episode 5. Like, this cannot be the beef throughout the whole entire season because both of them are full of it. Both of them are full of it, and I'm over it, okay? But let's get into this review. So, y'all know sometimes before we get into the review, we get a little spicy just a little bit. And I just got a few things to talk to y'all about. So, first up, a correction. So, you guys corrected me in my last video about Phaedra's age. In this post that I posted in my video, it said that Phaedra was 49, but she's in fact 51. Okay. And then I think one or two people tried to correct me about Kelly's age, saying that she was not the same age as Drew, who is 39, but actually she was. Now she is 40 years old. She recently had a birthday, I think like 2 or 3 days ago, and she posted, and I'm paraphrasing, but when she posted the picture, she said something to the effect of like, 40 looks so good on me, or something about 40 looks so good. So Kelly is actually 40 years old. So the group's age is updated now. So Cynthia is the oldest at 57. Then Kenya is 54. Phaedra is 51. And then you have what's her name? Porsha and Angela at 43. Then you have Shamea at 42. Then now we have Kelly at 40, and then Drew at 39, and then Britt at 37. Okay. But thank y'all for correcting me and being it respectful about it. You can always correct me if you're respectful. Okay. So moving on from that, I did do the drama video and I posted it on Saturday, and there was a Real Housewives of Atlanta segment, and y'all know I try to timestamp all my videos, so check out the description, not the description box or the pinned comment, okay? But I talked about Shamea in the different interviews that she did and her opinion on Kenya, Britt, Edie, and Porsha. And it's interesting because you can definitely tell that Britt did something that rubbed a decent portion of the cast the wrong way. And now some people are singing a different tune, as well as you can tell that there's a shift in Porsha and Shamea's relationship. I'm not saying that they're not friends anymore, but you can definitely tell they're not where they used to be. And it's going to be interesting to see how that shift happens, because the only person that posted Shamea's single that she just released like maybe a day or two ago was Kelly. I even went to Porsha's page. Porsha ain't posted nothing, which lets me know that yeah, there's a shift in this relationship. That Kelly and I seeing the video with Kelly and Shamea, they definitely have way more chemistry than I thought they did. Like, you can tell that either they really truly get along with each other, or Shamea was telling the truth about them really building a friendship. And now it seems like it's getting stronger as they have wrapped filming and all of that stuff. Because I was like, oh, y'all really seem like y'all have a good time together. But y'all know Kelly and Britt fell out. So I'm interested to see the fallout in that situation, because in this episode, they seem to really, I won't say they're the best of friends, but they seem to have like a simple and nice relationship. But something happened. Okay. Something shifted. And even when Shamea was on Watch What Happens Live this Sunday, she looked beautiful in that pink outfit, and then she was on Watch What Happens Live with Toya, and Toya is just pretty to me, so they both look great to me. But she was asked several things about Porsha. She was asked about Porsha and Drew's situation, and she stuck up for Porsha and said something to the effect of like, Porsha had empathy for Drew, but then Drew kind of like shifted or did something shisty, and so that's why Porsha changed her behavior towards her. Then they played played this game. I think it was like, can you defend that bestie? And she defended Porsha, but the energy was different. Like it was not the same Shamea that we've seen on this show. Even with the first episode, where she was really like going hard for her girl, it just gave very much of like low energy. So that also made me feel like there was definitely a shift in their relationship. So since I brought up Porsha posted this yesterday about her sit down with Kenya, and she said this: just two rock stars, no hate, no jealousy, just light shade and good vibes. All new hashtag RHOA tonight at 8 p.m. on Bravo TV. Don't miss it. And I will say, even though when I first saw this picture, I rolled my eyes, and I still do, I did enjoy the scene with Porsha and Kenya, and it did feel fresh in the sense of like they don't seem like they want to go back and rehash old stuff. It really felt like if Porsha, no, if Kenya would have stayed on this season, maybe Porsha wouldn't have switched up on her, because they've been at this point before where they've called it a truce, and then Porsha will start acting funny towards Kenya, and then Kenya starts getting back to her Kenya ways. But something about the way that they sat down with each other this time, it definitely felt like they would have done something different. Like we really would have saw them be like associates and possibly turn friends. So it kind of sucks we won't get to see that. But I was like, okay, Porsha, I'll give you that. You are two rock stars. So the last thing I want to talk about is this what do y'all think about this? I just want to know y'all thoughts about this. It says Bravo needs to do an ultimate girls trip with a few of the girls from RHOP, RHOA, and Married to Medicine. And they did a collage where from RHOP they said Giselle, Ashley, Wendy, and Mia. And then from Atlanta they said Porsha, Drew, Kenya, and Sheree. And then from Married to Medicine they said Heavenly, Simone, Toya, and Quad. I low key feel like I would be down to see that. When I tell you that would be the most chaotic season, it would be so much chaos, but I feel like it would be such good TV. It'd be a solid, like, if it was a solid 7 episodes, I feel like they would be calling Drew, Porsha, and Mia out for lying. Heavenly would be cussing, Simone would be cussing, Toya would be cussing, Quad would be like, it would just be shenanigans. It'd be shenanigans, and I low key would be here for this. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts, because I really do feel like this would be so chaotic, but in like a good TV way. But let's get into the review. So, like I said in the intro, I'm over Drew versus Porsha. And it might be because I don't really see it for either one of them. So, I'm not as invested that I feel like people who like Drew or like Porsha a whole lot, or who are fans of them are. But I'm just kind of like, y'all both full of it. Y'all both be lying. It's battle of the lies. Okay. So, I'm just kind of like, all right, you know. But let's talk about it. So, the episode opens up and we're still at Shamea's party. Honestly, I would have left early like Kenya did, because the amount of people that were in that house, when they pan into the kitchen and people are eating and talking, because it seemed like everyone was having a good time, and then they pan outside and it seems like the same amount of people are outside surrounding the pool. All I could think about is, how did everybody park, and where did everybody park? Because it doesn't seem like Shamea is in a regular subdivision like her home is. It seems like it probably is a part of a subdivision, but the houses are like really spread out. So I'm like, is it in a wooded area and people parked alongside the road? And if so, did y'all have like go-karts coming to pick people up, or, something? I was just like, girl, I hope y'all, contacted one of the mega churches and said, hey, can we use your parking lot ministry to direct traffic? Because ain't nothing like wanting to leave a place and you can't leave because you're either stuck in traffic or you boxed in. So I would have been like, girl, I got to go. This party started at 6. We need to make sure I need to make sure I leave by 10, maybe 11 o'clock at the latest, because I will not be stuck in traffic trying to get home. Okay. So we go upstairs, and we know at the end of last episode, Shamea ended up asking Drew, like, are you and Dennis messing around? Are y'all together? And Drew was like, girl, what? No. So you have Shamea ends up telling Drew, well, the reason why I'm asking you that is because I've been getting hit up by people saying that they've seen you and Dennis in the club holding hands in matching outfits. Kelly tickled me this entire interaction because her facial expressions. When they said matching outfits, Kelly was like, ooh. matching outfits. I said. And so Drew was like, no, we've never. And I feel like they're reaching with Drew and Dennis being in the club together because Atlanta reminds me of California, where a lot of people are transplants. A lot of people are trying to make a name for themselves. People are obsessed with like the clicks and the views. And I just feel like if somebody really saw Dennis and Drew in the club together, there would have been a bunch of photo evidence. And Shamea just said in the first episode, don't believe the blogs, don't believe the rumors to Kelly, but yet people are calling you and telling you this information, but yet it doesn't seem like you have any like factual proof of what's going down between them, if anything it at all is. Because it really feels like neither one of Dennis or Drew really see it for each other like that. It does seem like they really just making music together. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So Drew was just like, no, we were never in the club with matching outfits. Cynthia said anybody that she been on the show with better not show up with anybody on this show in matching outfits. And she said, not Peter, not Leon, and not James Mike Hill. Gave that man's full government name. Okay. And so you end up seeing Porsha explain why she didn't come to Drew's party. She was like, Dennis invited her. She had just taken off her face, just put Pilar to bed, and she just wasn't in the mood. She ends up saying that she saw a picture of Drew at the club, and she said she wasn't looking like herself. She was looking washed. And Drew said, oh, not washed. And then Kelly was like, like, Kelly said, ooh, and then started rubbing Drew's shoulder. But then Porsha had to walk it back because Drew ended up saying, like, well, I didn't have on makeup because I couldn't get in contact with my makeup artist. And then the picture that they showed of Drew wasn't a bad picture. She didn't even look bad. I was like, she did kind of look a little ashy, but I'm like, it looks like they were in the club when the picture was taken. So y'all know when you do the flash, or if you have a portable ring like that you bring with yourself, like you in the club is dark in the contrast. So I was like, she don't look bad. So what we talking about, Porsha? So you then hear Cynthia be like, so you didn't know that they were working together? And Porsha ends up saying, I don't care if they're working together. Like, I don't care. Like, she could marry him. She could sleep with him. She could, take his life. Like, I don't care. But then you hear, I think Britt say, it seems like you care. And I'm like, Porsha, you are the most bothered person in this moment because you keep saying you don't care what they're doing together, but yet you do like 3 confessionals about them filming. And don't they film the confessionals in one outfit, like in one setting each day? So it's like 3 days you were still talking about this in your feelings. Okay. So she basically says that she saw the headlines and Porsha was like, I didn't care about them. I just went straight like back to what I was doing, which was cooking. I don't care about them being together. They then show us pictures of them in the club together, but it don't even seem like you couldn't even see Dennis in the picture. I guess he was behind her or beside her. And I'm like, it's not them holding hands. So then Drew ends up saying, like, well, the reason why she worked with Dennis is Dennis saw her at the Tamar, or saw her opening up for Tamar when Tamar was on her, like, I think anniversary tour for Love and War. And she was like, he saw her, he gave her a pitch, and it was a really good pitch. And so they started doing music together. And then Drew is like, I've reached out to you many a times to explain to you what's going on, but you just seemed very busy. And so I told Dennis, like, hey, can you reach out to her? And he said that you gave him like your blessing. So then Porsha's like, y'all need to stop lying about me to each other. So then Drew ends up saying, Dennis has been my angel on earth. And everyone's like, Drew, no, ma'am. And it's funny because Drew is doing what Porsha does, where she likes to feign ignorance, like she doesn't know what's going on, when she totally understands why the person is upset. The whole like, I would never. Who said that? Like, they both do it. And I think it's funny that, like, they're doing it to each other. So you can tell that Portia's getting irritated with Drew because she has her hand on the water bottle and she has that smile like, girl, you testing me, but you better be glad these cameras are here, because if they weren't, I would throw this drink in your face and pop you upside your head. Because she's sitting beside Angela looking this way, and Angela, like when Drew ends up saying, like, he's been my angel on earth, Angela's like, Drew, that don't even sound right. Like, that does not sound right. Girl, you got to pick a different word. Drew ends up saying, like, Dennis is like a brother to me. Like, ever since me, you, and Ralph and Dennis have hung out, like, he even asked Ralph for his blessing, and Ralph said it was cool. Like, bro, there's nothing going on between us. So then you got Kelly in her confessional being like, Drew talking too calmly and too softly. I need her to put some bass in her voice. Like, girl, did you or did you not sleep with this man? And if not, girl, say it with your chest before she end up on this couch with us. Come on, speak up. So Drew ends up saying he was in the studio with me and he cried when he gave me this one song that was supposed to be about you. And Portia's like, oh, he cried. Okay, girl. And so then Drew ends up saying, and I don't want you to ever think for 1 second that that man doesn't love you or that I wouldn't do you like that. You got Kelly looking at Drew like, now, girl. And then even Kenya is looking like, Drew, you playing right now. You playing right now. I said, Drew, that was your best lifetime BET Plus moment. Cause I said, girl, you playing. You playing. So Portia's like, are you done? Are you done? And she's like, yeah. And Drew is like, okay, the posturing, like, seriously? And she's like, so Porsha said, girl, I've been a good friend to you. I let you become an ambassador. I did all of that, giving you hair and things of that nature. And she was like, we've worked good together. And Drew was like, yeah, we do. Like, yeah. And she was like, but you know what? You're a low down, dirty individual. And so everyone's like, ooh. Kelly is like, and Drew is like, Porsha. Like, Drew was really taken aback by it. I feel like Drew knew Porsha was going to be upset, but I don't think she thought she was going to be this upset about this situation. So Porsha then ends up pointing to Drew being like, and I'm here to tell you, you got the wrong one. Like, you playing this game and you got the wrong one. Okay, Drew. And you know, I always feel like when people say you playing with the right one or you playing with the wrong one, you are either very irritated or you're very mad. And I feel like Porsha is very mad at Drew. And I was like, I don't think, like I said, I don't think Drew thought she was going to be this upset with her because she looked like she was really taken aback by this. And even though I feel like Drew and Porsha like to act stupid and act like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on, they're not dumb. I feel like both of them are very calculated women. So then Porsha looks around and she was like, can I break the fourth wall? Can I break the fourth wall? And she's like, is there a producer up here? And a producer ends up saying, yeah, you can break it. So she ends up saying, y'all know we have all of our support systems and like our families and friends, and we film with those people outside of each other. And everyone's like, yeah. And so then she directs her attention back to Drew and she's like, and for you to be trying to go behind my back and be asking Dennis to film with you, that's out of line. That's out of pocket. So now everyone's like, oh, so that's what she's mad about. But I think Porsha felt like that was going to be like her moment of like really exposing Drew. And I think she thought everyone was going to be on her side. But all it did is to have like this debate on whether or not Drew is wrong, because everybody was like, so is it wrong if she's filming with him and they not together? I think Kenya said that to Britt Edie. She was like, well, they're not together. Is it that big of a deal? Because she's still married. And then Britt was like, well, I understand because, you know, that's her baby daddy, but like, I don't know at this point. So then they asked Porsha in the confessional, like, are you mad at Drew for sneaking around with Dennis because she's actually like a friend of yours? Or is it something else? And she's like, it's not even that deep. I just don't want her filming with my baby daddy. And like I said, Porsha is the most bothered person because she filmed 3 confessionals and they show us all the confessionals. And I'm like, don't they film the confessionals like in one outfit for the entire day for several hours? And I'm like, Porsha, you were that irritated that you spoke about this 3 times with them? I said, okay, girl. And so she ends up saying that her wanting to film, i.e. Drew wanting to film with Dennis, is complicating her life. And I'm like, in what way does this really complicate Porsha's life? Other than maybe she's scared that Dennis is going to like start bad mouthing her, or he now has a more visible platform to bad mouth her if they get into it. Because I'm thinking about like studio scenes that we've seen on Real Housewives, and 2 come to mind. Emilio Estefan, I think that's his name, Gloria Estefan's husband, when it was Real Housewives of Miami and Adriana went to hang out with him and they talked about the record that he did with her in the studio, and we hear her sing the song for a cute little minute before they go to Mexico where she performs it, and that was like maybe 3 minutes. And then I'm thinking about Candace Wendy going to meet up with Trina in her studio and they play the record that her and Candace did together, you know, the baddest. And that was like maybe 3 or 4 minutes and then the scene was over. So I'm like, how bad is it that she's filming these scenes with, if she could film these scenes with Drew? Or is it really because Porsha feels like she doesn't have control of the situation in the narrative? So having Dennis out there is like a loose wire that she can't like clip. I don't know, because I'm just kind of like, is it that really that big of a deal, bro? Because to me, it's not. Like, y'all not together. It doesn't really seem like he has any ill intent towards you. And it seems like they're only filming in the studio. And that's it. I don't know. So then Porsha ends up adding something new to the puzzle where she was like, you know, and she's trying to do a photo shoot with Grow Naked Hair. So Drew is like, yeah, I have a wonderful photo shoot set up for Go Naked Hair, like an amazing photo shoot. So then Portia's like, are you insane? You're an influencer. What tickled me about this was Angela in the background. Her face was like, it's getting worse. The pressure is getting worse. Like she was like, this is going to bad to worse. Like this is getting really bad for Drew right now. And but I get why Porsha was upset in this moment more so than the other moment, because I'm just kind of like, yeah, I get it. Like, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I also get why she's upset about, you know, Drew filming with Dennis or trying to film with Dennis behind her back. But I feel like, girl, you doing a lot. And it's kind of hard to really like be on your side when you have done some scummy shit to a lot of people. It really is. So what's it called, even though I feel like it is a weird move by Drew, it's still like, girl, we've seen Porsha do worse. You know. So it's like, can I really fault the lady? I mean, I can, but you know. So Drew is just like, why would you have an issue with that? And I'm like, well, girl, I get why she's upset. Like, she's the owner of this company. You can't just do a photo shoot and slap Go Naked Hair on it and think that she was going to be okay with that without vetting to see if this was a product she wanted her name on or her company's name on. Like, Drop It With Drew was a failure because we ended up finding out that, girl, you got like a mommy makeover, and instead of just being like, oh, this is a workout plan to help you maintain a newly mommy makeover body, you were trying to shop it like this was something that helped you lose weight. You aren't the advertisement genius, ma'am. So I understand her frustrations with that. So then Porsha ends up saying, you know, you are an awful individual and a slimy ass bitch. And I said, oh, okay, girl. But if we calling her slimy, you're the slimiest. So you then hear Britt say to Kenya, is this about Dennis or is this about the photo shoot? And I guess it would be both. Like, maybe it's a combination of both. So then Cynthia's in her confessional being like, well, you know, I don't really know who is truly at fault or who's lying, but we do know Drew liked to tell stories. She didn't known to tell a fib or 2 or 3 or 4, you know? So then they're arguing as they're getting up because Shamea's like, well, y'all, it's time for me to go cut my cake. Mind you, Portia's boobs look amazing in this blazer outfit. Like, I don't know if they're naturally, like, you know, they hers or if she got them done. But either way, if she got them done or if they're naturally hers, boobs look great. they perched and they sit and they look great in this outfit. And Porsha is yelling at Drew being like, girl, don't talk to me. Because Drew is like, Porsha, come on, I didn't even do anything. Like, you really gonna be like this? And she's like, don't talk to me, Drew. I'm done with you. Like, don't talk to me. And so Drew is in her confessional being like, are you mad about Go Naked? Are you mad about Dennis? Like, what truly is your issue with this situation? You know, the scene ends with the ladies jumping into the pool. We also see them take pictures before getting into the pool. And I thought it was cute. I think by that time, Kenya and Cynthia had left because the rest of the women that were around the pool, I think, was only Porsha, Angela, Britt, and I think I saw Drew. Yeah. So Porsha, Britt, Kelly, and Drew and were like, and Angela were the only ones left. I didn't think Porsha was gonna get into the pool, but then we see her like daintily, like, you know, falling into the pool. But I think I would have gotten in the pool. It looked like it was fun. It did. You know, it's the summer. You're supposed to be more free during the summer. So We then finally get a proper introduction to Angela Oakley. They have a beautiful home, by the way. And so we see Charles. We find out that Charles played for the Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks. You can tell that Angela was nervous in this scene because she offered him some alcohol. He's like, I don't drink wine. He was like, unless I'm like overseas or like out the country, but like, girl, not at the house. Like, what are you doing? And she was like, oh, right. So then she gave the drink to her daughter. We end up finding that Charles and Angela together, they have like 4 kids, but one son is Charles's son, that has his name, and then Angela has 2 kids from a previous relationship. Her daughter's 24, and then she has a son, and then they have a little girl that they share together, that they and I think her name is Arkella, or is it Arkella? Carly? I think it's Arca. I don't know. Little girl's name was, I don't want to say it was spelled weird, but I've never seen that name before. But yeah, so they got 4 kids all together. Charles was upset because Angela's 24-year-old daughter left the kitchen dirty, and I was with him. Like, girl, if you the last one in the kitchen, girl, wipe the counters, put the dishes in, in the dishwasher, the dirty dishes, or like if y'all have a drying rack, wash the dishes and call it a day. Don't leave that kitchen nasty. And it seems like Charles is the one that does the cooking in the house. Angela says he cooks, he cleans, he's a man's man. He takes care of the household. We found Charles met like, I think years ago, she gave him her number, and I think he ghosted her for like 10 years. And then they ended up both in Atlanta together, and they were living in the same development, noticed each other again. And then this time he was way more consistent. So they've been together for 10 years. But I think they've been married for 8 years. So they dated 2 years, got married. And she was just like, she really likes him. They really have like a true bond. And she says she's a self-made millionaire. She owns a financing group, but she also does like house flipping. And she was telling her daughter that she has like 5 properties, and like she's stressed about them because she's ready to get them on the market, but she can't be like hands off because she's afraid that if she is hands off, things won't get done to the way like she wants them to be. Charles is going to be an interesting character on this show, because when I tell you he got a mouth on him, Charles seemed like he is a nice guy to a certain extent, but he an asshole. Like, he gonna say what he feels, because he was kind of annoyed that Angela was talking about what happened at the all white party, and he was making all types of noise, opening up cabinets and slamming doors, and she like, Charles. And then they were talking about, Drew working with Dennis, and Angela being like, she understands why Porsha is upset, because I wouldn't want anybody working with my ex. And he was like, and Charles kind of made it sound like, girl, like, okay, girl, like you haven't worked with an ex before. And she was just like, the thing is, I wouldn't want you working with any of my exes or anybody on this show like that if we ever became exes. And he was like, I wouldn't work with any of them lames. I said, not the ladies being lames. I said, Charles. Charles is going to be a mess, but I'm interested. I wonder if Charles is going to be like the new Peter Thomas, or is Charles just going to say things and not even be bothered by it? I don't know. Because Charles doesn't give me that he needs fame like that. Like, if he is this well-known like athlete and things of that nature, and I know a lot of people do know him if they're really into basketball and things of that nature, he might just be saying how he truly feels and he don't care, and it's just unfiltered. You know what I mean? But I was like, yeah, they're going to be funny. More so, it seems like Charles is going to be a fun character. Porsha and Kenya, they're having lunch together. I thought it was kind of weird that they showed that Kenya purchased her Rolls Royce in like 2022, and then they said Porsha was gifted her car by Simon. And I was like, do they normally tell us when they purchase these items, or was that due to like Simon bombarding them with legal documentation, or were they trying to shade? I didn't get why they told us that, because normally they just show us the cars or the items and then, how much it is. They don't never tell us who bought it. Like I was like, that's kind of weird. So they show us a flashback of, the back and forth with Kenya and Porsha, like where it started with the whole, Miss America versus Miss USA, the whole title situation, all the way down to the last interaction that they had, which was them arguing with each other at the reunion for season 13. So Porsha basically says, we too old to be fighting anymore. We got kids. It's not that deep. So they sit down to have lunch, and Kenya was like, I talked to Drew about the whole music thing several days before we went to Shamea's party. And I was like, it was kind of weird to hear about music and Dennis together. And so Porsha ends up saying that Dennis did produce a children's album for their daughter, but that's pretty much it. And Kenya's like, oh, okay. And so then I think Kenya did ask Porsha, like, so you really didn't know that they were working in the studio together? And Porsha, I feel it confirms that she did know, because she says, Drew just be saying anything and doing anything, and I just support her in it. Like, she says things to me and she does things, and I just support her, which makes me feel like you knew that they were working in the studio, but you were more bothered by the fact that they were filming behind your back. So I guess that really is her issue, is that they're filming behind her back. And so she's just kind of like, I don't like that. Like, me and Dennis are in a good place. When they flash back to Porsha's Family Matters, when her family jumped that man and then she tried to fight his mama, I still don't understand how they cool. Because I would have been like Ralph and Drew. The only way we speaking to each other is if it's through an app and the judge is looking at it. Because I would have got back to the States and like our relationship would never be the same. Like, you were throwing plates at that man. You threw a boom mic at him. You were like, he touched my family. Even though you were trying to touch his mama. Like, you legit were trying to like knock that lady's head off by the shoulders. And then your psychotic aunt was grabbing Dennis from the back. They ripped that man's shirt. Lauren tried to get into it. Like, it was a mess. And I don't know how you come back from that, especially when Porsha was advocating for that man to be locked up in Mexico. And this was after the heels of her supposed to be Porsha Luther King, because she was clicked up with Yandy Luther King. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know how you come back from something like that, because I don't think I would have. Like, he must really love his child and doesn't want to rock the boat too hard with Porsha, because I know for a fact if he wanted to, he could have went to the courts and showed them that episode and been like, we need something else for this to be implemented, for us to be cool again. I don't know. I just know I couldn't do it. So Porsha ends up saying, like, Drew should be protecting my family. Like, my family's so vulnerable right now. And I said, because of your own doing. Girl, shut up. Shut up, Porsha. I can't. So then Kenya ends up asking Porsha about, the situation with Simon. She's like, girl, like every single day is something on the blogs that he's saying about you. She's like, yeah, girl. And Kenya was like, I'm trying to figure out how to turn off the notifications, And so she ends up saying that things went left because he stopped being honest with her. And I said, he never was honest with you, girl, from the beginning. The fact that you told us last episode he wouldn't even show you the finances should let you know that that man was never honest with you. And you're a dummy for marrying somebody that would not show you his finances. I wouldn't even thought it was about the green card. I would have thought about it. He has a massive amount of debt and he wants you to help pay for it, because why you not showing me what's in your bank account? Why we not doing that before we get married? So she says there was this one instance where they were in a car together and it was surrounded by the police. And basically she says that he basically told her that, like, when he had his green card the first time, I guess he was in a stolen car. He didn't know it was stolen. And if you have your green card, you can't get in trouble like that. And Kenya was like, yeah, you're not supposed to. So she was like, that's why they always like are getting carted off to the side of the line when they're at the airport and things of that nature. So she ends up saying that she didn't know anything about his past scamming, the credit card fraud situation, the identity theft. She was like, she didn't know none of that. So I'm over here shocked just like everybody else and things of that nature. And I'm like, she probably didn't know, but I'm just like, girl, there was too many red flags. And you allowed yourself to be greedy. You allowed greed to overtake your mind. And all the red flags that were in your face, you ignored them. You closed your eyes to them, because another blaring red flag for you is the way y'all got together. Like, the fact that y'all did that scummy thing together and you ain't think he was a scumbag, girl, you should have known right then and there he was not to be trusted, because he was down with messing around with you while he was still married. And you that wasn't a red flag to you, girl. Still don't get why she married that man. So Portia's just like, I didn't know. So then Kenya ends up asking her, so you were the fourth wife? And she's like, no, I was the fifth. That's another red flag. It's one thing to be like a second wife, maybe, and I'm pushing it with a third, okay? Because, your first wife could pass away during your marriage. Your second wife, y'all know, y'all could have gotten a divorce. And then, your third may be the one, third time's the charm. But hitting on fourth, you don't need to be married. Okay. And then Kenya, no, Porsha ends up being like, well, no, I'm his fifth wife because he had a fake marriage. I said, girl, the hell. So then Porsha ends up saying, like, I fell in love with him because he read my book, which I've never read Portia's book, but I've heard people read it. Like, there were so many people who got the book and was reading it live on their channels, and it's nothing to go up about Porsha. It's not profound. Porsha ends up saying that she shared her trauma with him about dating and how men have done her, and he was like, he understood me, so that's why I fell in love with him. I said, okay. Fell in love with him. And then Porsha ends up talking about how when she moved out of the house, her ring light or something went off, and she found out that he was bringing women to the house. And Porsha, Kenya ended up being like, yeah, you leave the hoes at the door. You don't bring them to the house with you and your kids. But I'm like, if y'all getting a divorce, is it really that bad? But then again, I understand, like, the ink on the documents ain't even dry, and you got hoes at the house. Yeah, no, man. Next thing we have is with Kelly and her project manager, Al, and her publicist, Lamont. They're at this new restaurant that they're going to be renovating for it to be Kelly's second chicken and waffles. Not only was Kelly in a DV, like physically abusive relationship, she also was in a financially abusive relationship, because we find out that she had 2 locations in Georgia, but unfortunately, I guess the location that her husband was running, he let fall by the wayside. And to the point where she had to give up that location because I guess financially maybe they owed some back rent and she couldn't keep up with the paying them people back. So she wants this new location to be her second chicken and waffles, and to be like her franchising, like a model for how she wants to franchise her stores. While she's in there, she keeps talking about how she wants to create generational wealth for her 4 daughters and how they need to get this up and running by July. Her project manager basically says, girl, that's not happening. And Lamont was like, girl, that's what I told you, because Al is like, we don't even have permits. And I'm like, yeah, girl, if you don't have the permits. When they said that, I said, ain't nothing happening in here. Ain't nothing happening in here. Like, you don't have permits for anything. Like, yeah, girl, that's not happening. It's not happening, my good sis. But I definitely feel like the way that Kelly is moving gives a trauma response. Like, it's like she's trying to like go, 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 go. And it's like, girl, you gonna have to stop for a moment and just breathe. Like, when we see her have her sit down with Britt, she's like talking about how she been up since 4 a.m. taking the girls to school. And I'm like, you don't have anybody that can do that for you? Like, your daughter's 17. Do y'all not have like an extra car where she could take the kids? Or like, is there a nanny you can pay to help you out? Because it just feels like she gonna run herself into the ground and we gonna watch her crash and burn eventually, But I guess Kelly is trying to get back to like having a 2-income household with the 2 restaurants and her husband having a job as well. But I'm just like, girl, breathe for a minute, So we finally get an introduction to Britt the same way we got one with Angela, where we find out that Britt is an insurance agent. She wanted to be an insurance agent because she's like, she didn't want nobody saying that they a boss of her or that any man made her. She has her agency called the Edie Agency. They show us a couple of Instagram posts about her business, similar to what they did with Angela. And they then talk to us about her relationship with Mike. We're in their townhouse. It looks like they're renting this place because they're trying to build a new home. And she basically is like, Mike was her client. She didn't want to like be with him because, she was like, I don't want to date my client. But Mike was very persistent. They ended up meeting before the pandemic and then getting married during the pandemic over Zoom. So she wants to have like a wedding and everything. She basically says that like they went to Vegas. She told him she wasn't going to sleep with him. He was like, that's fine. That's cool. They end up having a good time. And she's like, you know what? This is my person. So we find out that she ends up asking Mike, like, do you want to have a baby in this house or do you want to have a baby in our dream house? And Mike is like, why do you always got to plan everything? everything? You know, why can't you just go with the flow? And Britt is like, that's because we're two different people. You're the type of guy that throws stuff at the wall, where I am like, we got to plan stuff out. And I'm like, yeah, you need to plan a baby, sir. I don't know. Mike's energy was given like he was uncomfortable or a little nervous with the cameras, because like the facial expressions that he was making gave either Britt did something before they started filming and he was irritated about something, or he was just uneasy around the cameras, because he like he kind of was not going along with what they planned for that scene, it seems. So we then see Britt's mom, Angela, come downstairs as they're talking about having a baby. And Angela was like, finally, y'all are going to have a baby, because I guess she's ready for her to be a grandmother. Even though I wonder if Britt's two older sisters have children. And so, Mike ends up saying, allegedly, we gonna have a baby. And she's like, why do you keep saying allegedly? And he's like, because allegedly we gonna have a baby. So she's like, don't you want mom to come stay with us and pretty much not live next to us? Because right now, I guess in that townhouse, this is where I got confused, because Britt ends up telling her mom that she wants her mom to give up her house, but it seems like the mom is living with them. And I'm a little confused. Like, is the mom living with them, or is she just there with them when they film? I don't know. Cause I'm like, how does she still have a house and y'all want her to give up the house, but you want her to come stay with y'all when y'all get the new house built, but she's also staying with y'all in this house right now, or this townhouse right now. I don't know. So we find out that Mike has a 15-year-old son, but he wants to be a girl dad. So she wants to do IVF so they can pick the sex of the baby. I don't really see anything wrong with that per se. The only time I think IVF like or things like that kind of goes too far is when people want to pick eye colors or hair color. Like I feel like that's when you messing with babies, like you messing with the embryo too much. Let it go. Like let it develop into what it's supposed to be. Like sex choosing like whether you want to have a boy or a girl is one thing, but like starting to mess with like the eyes and the hair, like I don't like that. I don't like that. So they want to be girl parents. And I said, okay, cool. So we finished that scene. So, hey, y'all, this is Editor Leah. As I was editing the video, I realized I did not talk about Shamea and Shadina. Shadina being Shamea's surrogate. So, we see Shamea go to Shadina, giving her flowers. It seems like they've been able to keep in touch since the birth of baby Shiloh and since Shadina's breast cancer diagnosis. So, what we find out is that both Shamea and Shadina are harboring guilt. Like Shamea has guilt because she feels as though maybe Shadina being her surrogate might have caused her like gestational breast cancer. And then Shadina harbors guilt for having breast cancer and having to, give birth to Shiloh early. And both of them end up telling them, like, it's not your fault. Like, Shamea ends up saying, no, Shiloh is fine. By the way, the pictures that they showed of Shiloh, she is adorable, that flower crown, the polka dotted dress, and then the family picture of, Shamea, Gerald, Shiloh, and Shia. I said, this is a beautiful family. Okay, beautiful family. So she basically was like, girl, it's not your fault. And they both kind of like comfort each other. And basically, Shadina ends up telling Shamea she does have a girl that can be her next surrogate because Shamea still wants to have more kids. It seems like they want to have a boy. I think they have either 3 or 4 embryos left, 2 being a boy and maybe 1 or 2 being a girl. So they're still wanting to do it. They also talk about how mean people were to Shamea, finding out that she had a surrogate, basically saying like, you don't want to ruin your body, that's why you don't want to have your baby naturally, only to find out that Shamea has been trying for years to have a natural pregnancy, but she's done like, I think she said 7 rounds of IVF, taking 8 shots a day, and then she finally got pregnant. And unfortunately, it was an ectopic pregnancy, meaning that the egg implanted in her fallopian tubes and not her uterus, and then it ruptured, causing her to almost bleed out. Even though she was at the hospital, nobody was listening to her, trying to understand her until she showed visible signs of pain and blood loss. So she talks about how, they always tell us that we need to get doctors that look like us, but she also is like, humans should believe other humans when they say that they're in pain, no matter if they're black or white. And I said, yeah. So I thought this scene was actually really nice. We're learning more about Shamea, learning more about her struggles at when it comes to motherhood. And I think it's also great that her and Shadina have kept in contact even after something so traumatic for both of them. This scene of Britt and Kelly. Britt is going over to Kelly's house. Kelly got her dog walking around like a children's coloring book, giving very much Lisa Frank energy. And I know that costs a lot. Like, I have a friend that is a dog groomer, and she's like, the paint to like dye them dogs is not expensive, but like to do it to that degree is a lot of work. So I know she paying a pretty penny to get her dog to look like that with all them jewels and stuff on it. I said, girl, got her got her dog out here with leopard print, hot pink ends and everything, purple skin, fur. I said, my God, today. So they are talking. They bring up, Kelly brings up Britt having a wedding because, like I said, she got married on Zoom. And so she's like, do you want to have a wedding? Like, what do you want to do? Like, what kind of wedding you want to have? And I just can't wait to go. And she's like, something small, something intimate, but sexy. And then Kelly's like, and I make sure I won't show up 3 hours late. Porsha was 3 hours late. Do you know how disrespectful that is? Like, traffic or not, do you know how disrespectful that is? That means Porsha was already like 2 hours late and then got into the car and it became like, girl, you didn't want to be on time. You did not want to be on time because Atlanta traffic is bad, but it ain't that bad. It is not that bad, girl. You wanted to be late. So they also talk about the situation that happened between Kelly and Porsha, where she was like, when we went upstairs, I thought that's what we were going to be talking about, is the situation between me and Porsha, but she immediately went to Drew. And I said, well, that's because, girl, you ain't been in the game long enough for Porsha to feel like she has the desire to argue back and forth with you. Like, even though y'all are both like housewives, Porsha still feels like, girl, you're new here. I'm not about to give you this moment that you're looking for. So I'll go on somewhere. So then Britt brings up Kenya shade. Kenya did not shade you, girl. Like, even like, and the thing about it is, even if Kenya did shade you, it was very like minimal shade to where you shouldn't be this annoyed by it. Also, it sounded like a misunderstanding because your wedding ring does not have a band. It just looks like a piece of jewelry. So it definitely gave that like you were engaged. And then when you answered the question, the way you answered it was like, oh, this is my second ring. It definitely gave like, oh, second marriage, you know? But they're still pressed about that. They then talk about Kelly's divorce. That's when we find out that not only was her relationship a physical abusive relationship, also that man stole $500,000 out her bank account. And I was like, Britt, what? $500,000. And she said the way that she found out about it is that she was like on a girls trip or on vacation. She got a call from her accountant and they were like, girl, check your accounts. And so they had to file like a complaint and petition the court and all of that stuff for her to get her money back. So yeah, Kelly says she deserves an Oscar for the way that she pretended and pushed out her marriage like it was something beautiful and perfect, because there were nights that she slept in her closet, so many nights of the police being called, like it was a living hell being married to that man pretty much. So we move on from that scene and get this scene of Drew, Shamea, and Angela. They're at the gym working out, and Angela gets there before Shamea. Drew ends up telling Angela she's still kind of taken aback by the way that Porsha was acting at the party, and she didn't think it would cause all of this. Angela ends up saying, well, girl, there's so many producers in Atlanta. Why Dennis? And then Drew ends up saying, I've worked with legendary producers, but none of them have ever made my career go where it needs to be or where I think it should be. So I'm just trying to see if he has anything for me. She's like, I got Ralph trying to take all my money, trying to have me pay him child support, alimony, and then get a part of my businesses and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, see, Drew, you did the same thing that Kelly did. Y'all tried to prop these men up like there's something special, something to be beholden to and great. And then when it's time for things to fall apart, they show we finally get to see what you've been dealing with. And it's like, well, girl, you should have told people sooner, that with Drew, because Drew was trying to act like Ralph had money. Like he was this tech person. He was doing this. He was doing that. Y'all have all them assistants, just to come to find out that man, it seems like he ain't got a pot to piss in and he trying to take your pot. And so she starts crying and she was like, I'm trying to do this for my family. I'm trying to keep my head above water, me and my children. And it's like, I get that, Drew, but this is messy. This is messy. Drew is just as calculated as Porsha. Okay. if not more calculated than Porsha. So Shamea finally shows up, and they work out for a minute, and then they start talking. And so they start talking about what happened at the party. Angela ends up asking, no, Shamea ends up asking Drew, are you doing like an EP with Dennis or like an album? She was like, oh, we recorded 30 songs. And Shamea's like, 30? And she's like, yeah. So then Angela is like, did you ask that question for yourself or for Porsha? Because I was just wondering why you were asking these questions for Porsha. So Shamea is like, no, I asked them for myself. So then Angela starts getting like hype a little bit, where she starts over talking Shamea. On one hand, I like the fact that Angela wasn't afraid to like say how she felt to Shamea, but on the other hand, it was like, girl, you asked her a question, let her respond. Like, you keep cutting her off, talking about you're not gonna bulldoze me, I'm almost 6 feet, honey. And I was like, well, you asked her a question and she's trying to explain to you that, like, girl, no, I asked the question for myself. So she was like, you were at the party and you were quiet as a church mouse. Like, you ain't say nothing. So then it's funny because then Angela ends up saying you're being like Porsha's, I think she said representative or spokesperson or something like that. And I'm just kind of like, well, right now, Angela, you're doing that for Drew because you're not even letting Shamea speak, and Drew is being quiet as a church mouse right now. So then they kind of dead the situation because Drew is like, no, I don't want anybody to fight or anything like that. I want us to have a good time and all of this stuff. So I said, okay, this is the beginning of Angela and Shamea going back and forth. So then Drew in her confessional is like, if you look up the definition of a lap dog, it's Shamea. And I will never forget that picture of Shamea like this with her tongue out, like, girl, they gonna always call you that because you played into that mess. Tragic. So then the last thing we have is of Porsha and Dennis and Pilar. They're at like some like interactive playground for children. Look like a really cute, fun place for kids. And Porsha gets there first, and then Dennis gets there. So they sit down and talk. They hug on each other, and she's like, so y'all really doing business together, you and Drew? And Dennis is like, yeah, we doing business together. That's it. We're just in the studio making music and we're about to release an album. So then Porsha lies and says she's telling me something completely different. And then when you listen to Drew and you listen to what Dennis is saying, they're basically saying the same thing. He was like, no, we're just doing music together. They do the whole like, she's like, well, she's saying you're her angel on earth. And he laughs at that. And then she's like, Dennis is like, we're just doing music together. Like, recording and talking through our pain and stuff like that. And Portia's like, what pain do you have, Dennis? And he's like, you had 16 marriages on TV and I had to sit there and watch it all. And I do feel like to some degree, Dennis and Porsha still care about each other. But I think Dennis knows he's a whore and can't give Porsha what she wants. So I feel like he ate like her getting married to Simon and them rushing off so quickly. Because after watching Porsha Family Matters and reviewing it, I have a playlist plug right there. You can tell that if Dennis would have told Porsha, I want you to leave Simon and us be together, she would have did it. She would have did it. She would have dropped that man to be with Simon. Because even when they were at the in Mexico, she was like, tell him he can get his mother and his sluts gone, because she was pissed that Dennis was like dating somebody and brought them on the trip. And I'm like, well, you got your man here with you. Why can't he bring somebody with him too? You about to get married. Why do you care? Why do you care? So Portia's like, what pain? So then she was like, Dennis was like, do you think I want to mess around with Drew? Like, I'm banging Drew because I'm not. He was like, I never touched Drew the same way I told Ralph. I'm telling you the same thing. I would never do it. So she keeps saying she's literally telling me something completely different. I said, Portia, you lying, because she's not. So then she ends up saying, I'm concerned with her being on this platform, using my platform to like disparage me, or having you on this platform to do that. So then Dennis ends up saying, like, we're going to use her platform to promote her music. And so she's like, oh, so you're telling me you're willing to film with this girl to promote your music? For real? Like, and she's really taken aback by that. And I'm like, what loyalty does he owe you other than taking care of his child? So then she's like, Dennis's only role is to be a good father to Pilar. That's it. But she then ends up walking away from the play area, going to the bathroom, saying, I just need some support right now. I can never get support right now. When I tell you Dennis don't owe Porsha nothing, like she said, other than being a good father to her child. She like, what do you mean? She's in crying in the bathroom trying to be like, well, like what if I were to do this to him? Like, how would he feel? He doesn't deserve my tears. And I said, girl, okay, Porsha. So then they're in the car arguing back and forth because Porsha is like, it's insane for you to film with any other housewife other than me on this show. She's like, like you're doing too much, Dennis. Like, are you seriously like messing with me like this? And so then Dennis is in the car being like, Porsha, you tripping right now. Like, it's not that deep. And he also says the album was supposed to be out a month ago, but we still working on it. Like, let the album come out. And she was like, I'm telling you, listen to me right now. I'm telling you, you keep trying to play with me, trying to make me look stupid or anything like that. It's gonna be a mark against you, the way you look, like the way your daughter sees you. So I'm like, are you threatening him? And I wouldn't put it past Porsha to use Pilar as a pawn to go against Dennis. Like, I'm just like, Porsha, girl. Honestly, what this Drew Porsha Dennis situation boils down to is that Porsha was going to use Dennis to fall back on, and she can't use him, like, and she's mad because she feels like Drew is trying to take that away from her. Because if you think about it, we have 4 divorces going on. But Kenya is going to be phased out after the whole situation between her and Brittany. Then you have Porsha with Simon. You then have Drew and Ralph, and then we have Kelly and her soon-to-be ex-husband. But if you think about it, Porsha is the only one between Kelly and Drew that does not have anything else going for her other than her divorce storyline. And right now, divorce storylines are very stale for a lot of people, if we're going to keep it all the way honest. If you look at Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, people are tired of Mauricio and Kyle and PK and Dorit. And Dorit and PK just decided they was going to separate like a year ago, and people already over their divorce situation. So she's the only one that doesn't have anything else going on. You got Kelly trying to do a home renovation and everything, trying to pick up the pieces of her life after divorcing her husband. And you got Drew trying to do music. Like, we can get scenes of Drew in the studio without Ralph. We could get scenes of Drew, going to dance rehearsal or going to a stage performance coach. We can get scenes of Kelly picking out paint for her restaurant or going to look at the them breaking down tile, going to find new appliances and things of that nature. We ain't got nothing else with Porsha other than Simon. And we've already are tired of Simon and Porsha because all of that played out a year before the season premiered. So I really feel like when she says that Drew is complicating her life, now that I think about it, it's more so like, girl, she's taking away my storyline and I need this in order to stay on this show. So I feel like her storyline was supposed to be now her picking up the pieces of her life and trying to work on her co-parenting relationship with Dennis. I think that's it. And I think she feels like if Dennis is filming with Drew, then Drew and Dennis can have one-on-ones talking about the situation with Porsha and him trying to get back on being cool. Or she feels like people are going to get tired of seeing her with Dennis because we've seen Dennis with Drew. And I think that's like, I feel like she's worried about scenes competing because I do know they filmed a confessional together. Like, we actually see them in the confession, like it was like a picture being shopped around of Dennis and Drew, not Dennis and Drew, Dennis and Porsha in a confessional together. So I think that's really what it boils down to, is that she's pissed that Drew potentially could have taken away her storyline, because the truth of the matter is, if we don't see Dennis and Drew filming together, but yet Drew still has an entertaining storyline, but you start filming with Dennis and it's whack, girl, people gonna clown you. And I think Porsha is also a control freak, and she really wants to control the narrative of like her relationship now that she is back on this show. She was supposed to be the prodigal daughter, like the prodigal son returning like triumphantly, and that's not what happened. And I think she also realizes that she lost a lot of people with that move that she pulled with Fallon and Simon, that a lot of people who were fans of hers, the rose-colored glasses are off. She still has her hardcore Porsha stans, but like, I think she's trying her best to use this season to gain back her fans. And I don't think it's gonna work, because I think a lot of people are like, both you and Drew are the same person, and It's not that, like, it's like you can say that she's slimy and she's low down, but girl, you're just as slimy, just as low down, and we've seen you do worse to other people. Like I said, she's done some scummy shit. Yeah, y'all, that's it. That is all. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in the comments below. Remember to share your thoughts, like the video, and subscribe. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.